Hello and welcome to Telesur English. I am Estefania Bravo in Quito, Ecuador. This is from the south. Venezuela's government is releasing new details on the foiled destabilization, terror, and coup plans being organized from Colombia. The government said that intelligence pointed to plans which were being developed. This follows news that Venezuelan authorities captured another 8 terrorists in Chuao, Aragua, in a civic military police action on Monday. Among them, Antonio Sequea, who headed the so-called Operation Gedeon and who participated in the April 30, 2019 coup attempt, along with Juan Guaido. The deserter of the National Guard was seen on the Altamira distributor alongside right-wing fugitive Leopoldo Lopez and a number of military deserters. And also within those 8 captures attributed to the vigilance of the civilian population are these 2 U.S. citizens named Luke Alexander Denman and Arian Seth Berry. Both are U.S. military veterans from Texas, contracted with Silver Corp and are associates of Jordan Godreau, linked to opposition figures JJ Rendon and Juan Guaido. However, President Donald Trump has denied involvement of his government in brief comments to reporters outside the White House.
I just got information, nothing to do with our government, but I just got information on that. So we'll find out. We just heard about it. But whatever it is, we'll let you know. But it has nothing to do with our government.
During the Minister of Communications press conference, Jorge Rodriguez displayed some images questioning the relationship between Silver Corp and the United States president.
Today, President Donald Trump denied any type of relationship between Silver Corp and his government. But as it turns out, in the Instagram that Silver Corp uses, we see Jordan Godreau working as security for the President of the United States at a campaign event. If this is true, how is that the Secret Service of the United States contracts Silver Corp to provide security for Donald Trump? And how is it that Silver Corp is publishing that on their page? Here in another photo, President of the United States Donald Trump is near Jordan Godreau in an event in Charlotte, North Carolina on October 18, 2018.
Speaking on Monday night, President Nicolás Maduro showed some of the items collected upon the capture of the 8 mercenaries in Chuao. Among the items were satellite phones, radios, IDs, passports, a U.S. flag patch, and more.
Satellite phones, a military uniform, which is still wet, radios, which were used for coordination, binoculars, tags which belong to the various terrorists. Here is the tag of Rubén Darío Fernández Figuera, another one of Anderson Israel Ríos Marín. Here is the picture of Elias Pantera, who was shot down yesterday. Here is the passport of Elias Pantera. Look at this flag. Who were they fighting for? Donald Trump.
Para Donald Trump.
Sunday's terrorist incursion into Venezuela, orchestrated from Colombia, had been foreshadowed by a number of recent events and reportedly had the support of Colombia's intelligence agencies.
On March 26, retired Army officer Cliver Alcalá Cordones confessed to a plane in coordination with members of the Venezuelan opposition, paramilitaries and sectors of Colombia's right wing that would try to carry out a military incursion into Venezuela.
The weapons seized in Colombia belong to the Venezuelan people, as part of a pact signed by President Guaido and Mr. JJ Rendon, as well as by Mr. Vergara and North American advisors. For months, we've been working on the creation of a freedom unit for Venezuela.
Alcalá confirmed that the recipients of those weapons was going to be AKA Pantera, who was killed on Sunday by the Bolivian armed forces during the attempted raid. The authors of this plot came from Colombia, as confirmed by U.S. Special Forces member Jordan Godreau.
At 1700 hours, a daring amphibious raid was launched from the border of Colombia deep into the heart of Caracas.
Colombia's democratic sectors are demanding that the national government clarify Sunday's event, given that the attack had been forewarned.
This is a delicate matter, and it demands that the government explain how the intelligence agencies are responding to these groups that are trying to attack Venezuela. playing into the hands of the US and its intervention attempts.
Experts agree that the Colombian government violated the nation's sovereignty, working in the interest of the U.S. to destabilize its neighboring country.
Sadly, the Colombian government is still an accomplice in the violation of international law by attempting against a nation's sovereignty. As we have seen by the events at the border, there is a collaboration between Colombia's armed forces and paramilitary groups.
While Colombia's foreign minister has rejected the declarations of Venezuela's government, evidence continues to mount against the government of Iván Duque for their complicity.
International solidarity for Venezuela began pouring in on Sunday morning and continues today. The Bolivarian Alliance for the Peoples of Our America published its rejection to the maritime incursion of a group of armed mercenaries on Sunday. ALBA also denounces the dangerous new attempt to generate violence and fear in Venezuela with an objective of overthrowing the government of President Nicolás Maduro. St. Vincent and the Grenadines Solidarity Group has sent a message of solidarity to Venezuela after the recent attacks against the country's sovereignty and right for peace.
Sunday, the 3rd of May 2020, there was an attempted terrorist attack against the state of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. Investigations point to the involvement of agents operating out of the Republic of Colombia in consort with agents operating out of the United States of America. We, the members of Solidarity Group St. Vincent and the Grenadines, strongly condemn such action that goes contrary to our belief in non-intervention and our belief in the right to self-determination of the Venezuelan people. Furthermore, it is shameful that a country like the Republic of Colombia, that historically shares the spirit of Simón Bolívar, would allow itself to be an imperialist proxy against a sister country.
We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Jamaica has extended its national curfew by 7 days in addition to work-from-home orders that will allow businesses to remain closed. This as the country struggles financially against the novel coronavirus outbreak.
We have been examining the impact of the measures generally on the economy. And there are some measures which have had considerable economic impact. We are absorbing these impacts because we want to contain, first and foremost, but strategically to control the spread of the disease. The truth is that the measures have been very effective in controlling the spread.
Within the last 24 hours, I'm pleased to announce that we have had only 2 confirmed positive cases of COVID-19 in Jamaica. So this brings the total to 471 confirmed cases on the island. The 2 new cases are 1 male, ages 12, from St. Catherine, and 1 female, 20, from the parish of Clarendon. Both are contacts of confirmed cases based on the contact tracing. There are 221 confirmed COVID-19 cases related to the workplace cluster in St. Catherine, which constitute, of course, the majority of cases that we have had to date.
Bermuda has confirmed 115 cases of the novel coronavirus. Premier David Burt tweeted that 54 people have recovered, 16 remain hospitalized, 34 are recuperating at home, while 7 people have died. The patients are between the ages of 18 to 95. Thus far, 3,271 people have been tested. Bahamian Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis has accepted the resignation of his Minister of Health, Dr. Dwayne Sands. This follows reports that a family of 6 permanent residents were allowed to disembark a plane carrying COVID-19 test swabs despite the country's lockdown measures. In a letter posted to his Facebook page, the former minister accepted full responsibility and apologized for the protocol breach. Since the incident, the country has made provisions to allow its citizens trapped abroad to return home.
Total number of confirmed cases in the Bahamas.
The director of the Pan American Health Organization has urged countries in the Americas to act cautiously when easing restrictions over virus containment, as it could result in a dramatic upsurge or spread to adjacent areas.
All of our countries in the Americas, I urge you to consider the following approach. First, be cautious. Easing restrictions too soon could accelerate the spread of the virus and open the door for a dramatic upsurge or for spread to adjacent areas.
In Ecuador, students have taken to the streets despite lockdown measures to protest against the education cuts announced by the government of President Lenín Moreno. Our correspondent, Denise Herrera, has more.
Ecuador has now more than 31,000 cases of COVID-19 in the country and 1,569 deaths. This number was given by the authorities in the latest report, but this number is still criticized by different social organizations of human rights who are still denouncing that the government is not saying the truth in relation with the numbers of the deaths in the province of Guayas, which is the city with the highest numbers of deaths in the context of the COVID-19 in the country. Also, recently, the students from public universities of Ecuador have gathered outside the Central University in Quito. They claimed and they are rejecting the recent announcements made by the government. The government said that they will make cuts in the budget of education, so they are rejecting these cuts. They said that the government is not thinking in all Ecuadorian students and they are affecting directly the education in the country.
In Bolivia, the president of the lower house has raised the possibility of modifying a recently proposed law that requires elections to be held within 90 days, depending on the progression of the novel coronavirus. Let's have a look.
A bill proposed by the Electoral Court says that elections could be held within 45 days, but suggests to wait for 150 days. However, the Legislative Assembly instead declared a 90-day window to hold these elections, which set off a campaign by the de facto government against the movement towards Socialism Party.
To politicize this during the pandemic is not right. We are interested in protecting lives, and the separation of powers is being ignored. The Electoral Court has established a time frame, but they don't care to respect it.
The de facto government announced that this week they will ask for a repeal of the lower house law project to once again leave these delayed elections in limbo. Right-wing candidate Carlos Mesa, for his part, has asked for a meeting to reach an agreement.
We need a clear roadmap considering the pandemic, putting the lives of the people ahead of everything else. We also need a government chosen by the people. A transitional government cannot lead in this time.
Last January, the Constitutional Court ruled that the elections cannot be delayed indefinitely, once again, as it would be an unconstitutional act.
Suggesting open dates leads to uncertainty, which is probably what Mrs. Áñez wants, to stay in power for an indefinite amount of time without having been elected.
Lawmakers from the MAS party, who hold a majority of votes in both the lower house and the Senate, cited Article 169 of the Constitution that says that a transitional government has at most 90 days to call for elections, a time frame long past.
We are willing to meet with experts once the terms have expired, like we've done until now, and to talk with the Electoral Court to define changes.
8 political parties are in the running for the elections, 7 from the right wing that backed last November's coup against President Evo Morales, against the left-wing movement towards socialism, which is still the front runner.
May 5th marks the 182nd anniversary of Indian Arrival Day in Guyana. On this very day in 1838, the very year of the abolition of slavery in the country, the British government sought cheap labor to work the plantations. 396 Indian immigrants, popularly known as the Gladstone Coolies, landed at Higbury, Berbice in British Guyana aboard the Whitby and Hesperus. This was at the beginning of the indenture system, which was abolished in 1917. By this time, some 240,000 indentured servants had settled. East Indians are now the single largest ethnic group in Guyana, branching out of sugar into all aspects of economic and political life. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. For more news now. Yemen's health minister has announced the country's first death due to COVID-19. Let's have a look.
The Ministry of Health received a report about coronavirus case in a hotel in Amanat al-Asima last Sunday, and the epidemiological investigation teams immediately rushed to the hotel, where they found a Somali national dead. A sample of the dead body was taken for laboratory testing, and the results showed that he was infected by the novel coronavirus. The case had chronic diseases like kidney failure and chronic liver inflammation. The hotel was disinfected and sterilized.
Hong Kong announced plans to ease major social distancing measures, including reopening of schools, cinemas, and bars. There have been no new confirmed infections locally in 10 out of the last 16 days, and the cases that have been recorded came from people arriving from overseas who have been quickly quarantined.
The Executive Council passed an amendment this morning. The definition of banned groups gathering will be relaxed, from more than 4 persons to more than 8 persons. The government has decided to resume classes by stages from May 27th.
Honduran citizens in the capital city blocked a highway to demonstrate against the burial of COVID-19 victims next to their communities. Around 300 people gathered at the Tegucigalpa Olancho Road to prevent the burial near populated areas, as they fear it could represent a risk for them to get infected with COVID-19. Honduras has recorded 82 deaths from COVID-19 and recently surpassed 1,000 cases.
We don't want him to send people to be buried into this cemetery at kilometer 14 because they are infected people, and here we have a lot of families and we don't want to get infected because of him.
In Guatemala, the health emergency caused by the novel coronavirus brought to light a lack of infrastructure and economic policies that could benefit informal workers who are still putting themselves at risk to put food on the table.
These vendors were ejected from an informal market in Ixcan municipality. This forced them to set up shop on the side of a highway in the department of Alta Verapaz.
They didn't want them selling their wares in Ixcan due to fear of infection, but what they sell are everyday products, and such commerce is still allowed.
These vendors are well known for their vegetables, which are harvested in the department of Quetzaltenango, in the west of Guatemala.
Carrots do not grow here. We have one kind of tomato, but they have another kind that does not grow here, so they bring such products to us.
Their eviction is shedding a light on the state's lack of assistance for the most vulnerable.
The government has done nothing for us. Any support we've got, thanks to the people of Ixcan. We need those people, and they need us as well.
Across Guatemala, there are no policies to help informal vendors.
Informal vendors have also denounced a lack of proper infrastructure to sell their products. They've had to set up shop in unsafe areas which severely violate health protocols.
There's no running water, there are no clean floors, and the president does nothing.
There is no official registry in Guatemala with the numbers of vendors working informally today.
And with that, we've come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesorenglish.net.
Follow our program minute by minute. Our signal in audio format is now also available on our website. Get the latest updated facts and news emerging around the world from a Latin American reliable angle. Telesur, connecting the global south.
And also be sure to follow us on social media. We are on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. For Telesur English, I am Estefania Bravo. Until next time.